everyone, welcome to my channel Size App. I know this is my second video and my posts have not been regular. I was brainstorming what kind of content to publish that would be useful for you and your learning. So I came up with the idea of publishing content about cloud computing, and I've started with Amazon Web Services. So I'll start this series as a 10-minute or less video to explain to you the major concepts in cloud computing in AWS. I know they have many certifications that are offered, like data engineer, solutions architecting, that Amazon offers that can help you become professionally certified through Amazon in cloud computing. So maybe it will help you to achieve those, or for those just trying to understand what cloud computing is for interview purposes or otherwise. Hopefully this will be helpful for you. So the videos I will try and keep 10 minutes or less because I know we're crunched for time and I sometimes want something quick to get a quick understanding of how different services differ from each other and which ones are more important. So for today's video, I'll be focusing on compute services and the compute capacity in AWS. The first of which would be EC2. There are 5 that I have identified: EC2, ECS, Elastic Beanstalk, Lambda, and that's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And EKS, you can say, but that's more optional. If you understand ECS, you should be able to understand EKS pretty fast. So let's start with EC2. So what is Amazon AWS EC2? So an Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2, it provides a scalable computing capacity in AWS. It eliminates your need to invest in hardware upfront so you can develop and deploy applications faster. So it's a virtual servers that you can work on that you can configure the security and networking, manage storage. Amazon EC2 enables you to scale up or down to handle changes in requirements or spikes in popularity, and it greatly reduces your need to forecast traffic. So to understand EC2, there are a couple terminologies that you should remember for certification purposes or otherwise as well. So there's something called instances. So what instances in EC2 is a virtual computing environment. Then second, you have Amazon Machine Images, AMIs, which are pre-configured templates for your instances known as AMIs. And what they do is they package the bits you need for your server, including the operating system and additional software. Third is the instance type. So it can have various configurations of CPU, memory, storage, networking capacity for your instances. Fourth would be key pairs. It's like the secure login information for your AWS EC2 instances. So AWS stores the public key, and the private key you should store in a secure place and on your local machine. Then you have instance store volume, storage volumes for temporary data that's deleted when you stop or terminate your instances. Then you also have Amazon EBS volumes, which is persistent storage, which is Amazon Elastic Block Store. The sixth is regions and availability. You have multiple physical locations where your resources are located. Then you can set up security groups, which is a firewall that enables you to specify protocols, ports, and source IP ranges. You can attach an elastic IP address, which is a static IPv4 address for dynamic cloud computing. To your EC2 resources, you can attach tags, which is like metadata that you create and assign to every resource you have to help differentiate one from another. Then you set up virtual private clouds, which is virtual networks you create that are logically isolated from the rest of AWS cloud, and you can optionally connect it to your own network. So at a glance, EC2 instances are virtual environments that you can create. You can configure the security, compute capacity, memory, storage, and you can specify each of them separately. This is what makes EC2 very powerful. And the vocabulary that you should know are instances, Amazon Machine Images, instance types, key pairs, instance store volumes, Amazon EBS volumes or block store, elastic block store, availability zones and regions, and know the difference between the two, security groups, elastic IP addresses and what makes them elastic, and virtual private clouds known as VPC. So the second most important concept that you should understand in compute for AWS is ECS. Now, what is ECS? It stands for Amazon Elastic Container Service. So what this, for those of you who are not familiar with containers, I will post a separate video to go and deep dive into what containers are. So in one sentence, containers is so as I have Googled, a container is a self-packaged standard unit of software that packages code and all its dependencies so the application can run quickly. So imagine them like self-functioning. So an Amazon Elastic Container Service, it's highly scalable, fast container management service that makes it easy to run, stop, and manage Docker containers on a cluster. So you host your cluster on a serverless infrastructure. What is Amazon Elastic Container Service? Amazon Elastic Container Service is a highly scalable, fast container management service that makes it easy to run, stop, and manage Docker containers on a cluster. So now what containers are, I will explain in detail in a separate video. But in one sentence, what container is, it's a standard unit of software that packages up code and all its dependencies so the application runs quickly and reliably from one computing environment to another. So it's a self-packaged, self-managed package that you can create and deploy. So you can host your cluster on a serverless infrastructure. Again, I'll have a separate video on what serverless is. That is managed by ECS by launching your services or tasks using another Fargate. It's an AWS service. It lets you launch and stop container-based applications with simple API calls, and it allows you to get the state of your cluster from a centralized service. Through ECS, you can also schedule the placement of containers across your cluster based on your resource needs, isolation policies, and availability requirements. So the benefit of ECS is that it eliminates the need for you to operate your own cluster management and configuration management or worry about scaling your management infrastructure. ECS also helps build experience, manage and scale batch and extract transform load ETL workloads and build sophisticated application architectures on a microservice level. So again, serverless versus microservice and what containers are, I will get into detail in another video. For now, just go with the definition that I'm giving you for ease of understanding. So there are several things to understand about ECS at a high level. It's a regional service that simplifies running application containers in a highly available manner across multiple availability zones within a region. So you can create ECS clusters within a new or existing virtual private cloud, VPC. So after a cluster is up and running, you can define task definitions and services that specify which Docker container images to run across your clusters. So container images are stored in and pulled from container registries. So either you can have the registry ECR, which is the registry service offered through AWS, or you can use Docker registry, known as Docker Hub. So containers and images is something I will get into later, but for now, to reiterate, Elastic Container Service, it's a container management service that makes you easy to run your Docker containers in a cluster. Now moving on to the next most important is Elastic Beanstalk. So for this name that always throws me off, but what Elastic Beanstalk in AWS, it's comprised with over 100 services, each of which exposes an area of functionality. So with Elastic Beanstalk, you can quickly deploy and manage applications in cloud without having to learn about the infrastructure that runs those applications. So Beanstalk reduces management complexity without restricting choice or control. You simply upload your application and Beanstalk automatically handles and details of capacity provisioning, load balancing, scaling, application health monitoring. So again, on a separate video to computer science, I will go through each of these concepts and what they mean. Elastic Beanstalk supports applications in 7 different languages. So there's Go, Java, .NET, Node.js, PHP, Python, and Ruby. So when you deploy your application, Elastic Beanstalk builds a selected supported platform version and provisions one or more of your resources, such as the number of EC2 instances you would need to run your application. So you interact with Beanstalk by using the management console and the AWS command line, or at a high level, or EB, which is designed specifically for Beanstalk. But I personally have not used EB, so I would recommend using the management console or the CLI. CLI is much easier to use. So in terms of to recap what Beanstalk is, it just provisions all the resources you would need so that your focus stays on your code and deploying it. Moving on to the next most important, Lambda. I have not seen an architecture without a Lambda function. So Lambda is a compute service that lets you run code without provisioning or managing servers. Now you might question, how is it different from Beanstalk? So Beanstalk provisions the resources that you would also need to manage the environment. But for Lambda, it's just provisioning or managing the servers. So Lambda executes your code only when needed, and it scales automatically from a few requests per day to thousands per second. So you pay only for the compute time you consume, and there's no charge for when your code is not running. With Lambda, you run code for virtually any type of application or backend service with zero administration cost. So Lambda runs your code on a high availability compute infrastructure and performs all the administration of the compute resources. So you can use Lambda to run your code in response to events, such as changes to data in a storage bucket or a relational or a DynamoDB table, or to run your code in response to HTTP requests using API gateway, or invoke your code using API calls made using AWS SDKs. So with these capabilities, you use Lambda to easily build data processing triggers for AWS services like the S3, which is a storage bucket, or DynamoDB. So when do I use Lambda? Lambda is ideal compute platform for many application scenarios, provided that you can write your application code in languages supported in Lambda. So when using Lambda, you're responsible only for your code, and Lambda manages the compute fleet that offers a balance of memory, CPU, network, and other resources. But this, again, comes in the exchange of flexibility, which means you cannot log into compute instances or customize the operating system or language runtime. So in a nutshell, Lambda function allows you to provision or manage AWS servers, and it helps you build serverless applications composed of functions that are triggered by events and automatically deploy them using some of the SDK tools like Code Pipeline and Code Build. So to touch on the last component in compute that you should know for certification or other purposes is EKS. It's Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service, which is a managed service that makes it easy for you to run Kubernetes on AWS without needing to stand up or maintain your own Kubernetes panel. So what Kubernetes is, it's an open source system for automating the deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. So EKS runs Kubernetes control panel instances across multiple availability zones to ensure high availability. It also detects and replaces unhealthy control plane instances and provides automatic version upgrades and patching for them. So it's just a management tool and for a way for you to connect to Kubernetes through AWS. So for now, to recap, the 5 that you should know for certification purposes is EC2, ECS, EKS, Beanstalk, and Lambda. EC2 Elastic Cloud Compute, ECS Container Service, EKS Kubernetes Service, Elastic Beanstalk for resource provisioning, and Lambda for your functions. So for this video, this will be it, and goodbye and good night.